Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. And we usually do walk on Wednesday today, but it is a special holy holiday. It's a holy day. It is the appearance of our guru's guru, that's called a param guru. Your guru's guru is a param guru. And another name for that is Vyasa Puja. Puja means to worship. Vyasa is the day we honor Vyasa. Now, Vyasa is the one we always say a prayer to every morning. Vyasa, the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so when we appreciate the guru, it's as if we're worshiping Vyasa himself. And the guru, or the teacher, is supposed to be representing Vyasa. So that's interesting because a lot of you guys are yoga teachers, and we're trying to teach transcendental wisdom. So if we're teaching transcendental wisdom, there's parameters in our behavior, the way we act, because we're supposed to be representatives of Vyasadeva. So today is Vyasa Puja of Srila Prabhupada. And, at the very, I was trying to think how to explain this in the most liberal way. In the same way, yesterday was the appearance of Krishna. By the way, I just want to talk, before I get into this, I just want to appreciate Kaustubha. What a nice show that was yesterday with Raghunath Swami, wasn't it?
It was.
What a nice show.
So grateful to have him. He was so happy.
Got so much feedback. If you didn't listen to yesterday's show, turn this one off right now and go back and listen to yesterday's.
Hold it.
Everybody from Zoom just left.
I think over 50,000 people viewed it on Facebook.
You're kidding. Oh,
yeah, it's still growing too.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. Okay, he told me to contact him and share if people liked it. So if you liked it, you can write in a little message.
Oh.
So anyway, this is the day to appreciate, in the most broadest sense, that a person's gesture of devotion. Now, for me, in terms of Srila Prabhupada, it's almost like the potentiality movement of the 80s, Kaustubha. How one person who really fulfills their spiritual potential can do so much. When you get really dialed in and focus on who am I and what is my offering in this life. It's amazing what can happen. And Srila Prabhupada was he could write the self-help book about focus and determination and potentiality perhaps. But what he did with this short life of his was quite fascinating. And he was he had a full-on life, a full-on business, a family, etc. And in that time, he didn't say, well, I can't do it because I have a family. He spent that time in full preparation. It's almost like there's a lot of work going on in the seed before it sprouts. There's some seeds that don't sprout for a long time because they do a lot of work preparing to like shoot the sprout out and through the earth, and then grow the
Your botanical
sapling.
analogy. It's like,
I don't even know what I'm talking about. I think there are seeds that do that. Yeah, come on, back me up here. There's seeds that spend a long
there's
time.
definitely some trees that they wait years till they give their fruit. Right?
That's what I mean. 9 years, avocados. Come on. So Prabhupada was one of these person. He is Chinese bamboo. Thank you, Arabind. This guy knows a little bit about everything.
You'll take any bone anyone will throw you right now. You'll grab onto it.
And Prabhupada spent that whole time literally preparing. And so we're going to dedicate the show to our guru's guru, Srila Prabhupada, our Param Guru, and just give some appreciations because...
You know, can I say just one?
Yeah!
Is that, in one fact, he's our guru's guru, but he's something beyond that as well. In that he's a historical figure in being the person that fulfilled prophecies going even back to Bhagavatam and to the time of Sri Chaitanya of how bhakti would affect the entire world. He is the historical figure who really brought bhakti to the rest of the world. And it's an amazing history of how he did it. And maybe today we can read just a little bit about, you see, because it's like what we're doing here, like what we're doing Wisdom of the Sages. Every day we got, 100 people or so tuning in the morning early. And then thousands of people are listening to it afterward, but they're hearing Bhagavatam. And it's only because of him that we're doing this. And that thousands and thousands and thousands of other people are doing it all around the world. But Bhagavatam itself speaks about how in the age of Kali, when things just start to get worse and worse, where there's greater hypocrisy, where there's greater quarrel, where people lose touch with nature, abuse nature, and just make life more miserable for themselves, that it's the Bhagavatam that would be the place where Dharma would be found. And he made it his mission to bring that to the rest of the world. So anyway, maybe as we go forward, we can read a little bit about that. But did you want to share maybe just like a quick summary of his life?
I thought you were going to say about my cat.
Oh, well, that's another subject. Okay.
Well, because I left people on a cliffhanger.
All different directions.
The cliffhanger the day before Janmashtami, I was like, my cat's got rabies. Well, you want to hear it?
What
was
did
horrible.
I tell you?
I called the vet as soon as I got off to the show, and 8 o'clock the vet was open. I said, "Look, my cat has rabies, and I want to do a check." And they were like, "Okay, bring him in, and we'll euthanize." What's it called? Euthanize? Euthanize?
Yes.
Euphemize? Well,
Euthanize.
We'll euthanize your cat.
Not euphemize. Euthanize.
Euthanize your cat.
Euphemism is another thing.
And I was like, wait a second. What does that word mean? She goes, we'll kill your cat. I was like, and then we'll cut off his head. And then could do a brain test. I was like, and then what if he doesn't have it? I was like, I don't want you guys killing my cat to tell me if my cat's okay. I was like, what kind of vet are you? And so I called another vet, and they were like, anyway, my cat's okay. We're getting the results back today, but he seems a lot better. And he came back.
I told you to have some faith, Robert. He would be better.
Well, you know what? I was worried about him, and I Googled. I tried to be like this web vet MD.
You decided, he's got rabies.
I just went right to the worst thing he could do, like Old Yeller. Did you ever see Old Yeller when they shot the dog? It was like
I think I did as a kid.
It was like an old Disney movie.
Yeah.
Their family. Anyway, not to divert, but I know some people were
No,
hanging. I got a lot of I got a lot of cat sympathy emails. So thank you for, you know what? Maybe it was everybody's prayers for my cat.
Maybe it was.
It has saved my cat. Okay, so let's just, let's do mantras. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, and Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashisha Deshatarine. That's our Pranam mantras to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, Kaustubha.
Yeah.
I want to start this off today.
Well, there's a couple things I thought we could do. First, let's just read a little bit from some verses from Bhagavatam itself, and maybe a little from some of the works on Chaitanya, just to give a little perspective. But then, there's this book. I really enjoy this book. It's called Our Srila Prabhupada, and it's a book. It was compiled by a very nice devotee named Mula Prakriti Devidasi. And she went and started interviewing all these people that knew Srila Prabhupada before he went to the West. And a lot of great interviews in that book.
Which is a very cool concept. Like, people who just knew Prabhupada walking around Vrindavan or had something before the whole Krishna Bhakti thing took over throughout the whole world. Like, what was he like? What did you notice about him? Very, very cool thing.
So we'll read from that as well today.
And by the way, Kaustubha, I just want to throw this out there that we have Shama Sundar scheduled coming up this month. Now, I just want to give a little plug for this. Don't miss this show. Shama Sundar was one of these super, me and Raghunath Swami were talking about him yesterday. He was out of the box, like way out of the box. And even when he was in the box, like a brahmachari disciple, a servant of Prabhupada, the box was pretty darn big. He was the one who met the Beatles. His roommate was the manager of the Grateful Dead. He put on this big concert for Prabhupada with the Grateful Dead and Moby Grape. And
Moby Grape.
John Lennon invited him to live with him in his house, and he brought Prabhupada to John Lennon's house. I mean, this guy's got so many cool stories.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And Raghunath Swami told me on the phone yesterday, he goes, he's turned down every podcast except Wisdom of the Sages.
I know, he told me that too. And I said, well, did he say why? And he said, he must just love you both so much. I was like, oh my gosh.
He's super cool, but while he was writing his book, he's got these two great books. So if you want something to read, if you feel like I need a book, this is a great book. It's called Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. Mara's favorite book. She loves that book. Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. Anyway, check that out. He's coming on the show, and if you have some good questions for him,
and it's so pro because to speak about him on today, because here was a person that just loved Prabhupada so much. You can, because he met him when he was a young man. He just gave his life to him entirely, and they just had a world of adventure together. Incredible adventure.
This is a thing. People think if you know what, I've got all these plans. I don't want to be all spiritual and live some boring life. It's the most adventurous life you've ever had. What would I be doing? What would I be doing? Yeah, I've had more adventure in Bhakti than anything I could do. Yeah, I'm super grateful, and you're gonna love this interview with Shama Sundar, and we're just gonna. I'm gonna go for all the Beatles questions I've always wanted to ask.
So why don't we go ahead and make our announcements about this weekend? That's the following weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend. We'll have him on Sunday. Yeah. This weekend, Raghunath's very busy. He doesn't have enough time for us, apparently. So
Saturday I have an all-day program in New Jersey. You're all invited to come. Just Google search Yoga Bohemia if you want to come in the kirtans at 6 at Long Beach Island in the evening. But I can't do the show at 8. I'm sorry.
So we're going to take questions and answers and move it over to Sunday.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Saturday we won't have a show. Sunday we'll do the show at 8 a.m., but rather than being interviewed, it'll be questions and answers. All right.
Okay. Sorry for that adjustment.
Yeah, do what you got to do. Okay, so let's read a little from Bhakti. Now, and again, just to set the stage of understanding who this Prabhupada was, that he was a man that he was born in Calcutta in what was it, 1896, I believe?
Yeah.
He was brought up in a Vaishnava, in a Bhakti, a family of Bhakti-yogis. And it's, he describes that his father was this very pious man, and what any kind of sadhu, any kind of holy person, he would invite them in and feed them and let them speak and everything like that, and which was a beautiful kind of pious thing. But at the same time, Srila Prabhupada in his youth saw so many so-called holy men and so on that, he just became a little bit,
weary.
Yeah, whenever someone say, oh, this person or that person, he was kind of like, come on, I've seen all this. And when he was in college, a very close friend of him said, I've been hearing from this sadhu. You have to hear from him. And Prabhupada was like, I've heard so many of these sadhus. And he's like, no, please, please. And he just kept insisting. And so finally he agreed, and they brought him to a rooftop, gathering of this sadhu. And when they saw him as, kind of pious young men, they bowed down on the ground. And as they were rising, this sadhu said to them, you two are both very intelligent young men. You should take the teachings of bhakti and share them with the entire world. Take them to the Western world, and spread them in the English language and all that. And he was kind of like, whoa, I haven't even said hello yet. I haven't heard you speak. But that, after hearing him speak that evening, Srila Prabhupada realized this is for real. This person is for real. His understandings of all of Vyasadev's work and all the works of yoga is real. He was so impressed by him that from that moment, he said, I accepted him as a guru in my heart. Later on, and that sadhu, his name was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Very important figure in the history of Bhakti Yoga.
Another amazing person. He was the one who had like child prodigy, grew up to have a lifelong monk.
Yep.
And grew up, ended up having thousands of disciples all over India. And institutions, basically, temples all over India. And even had a couple German disciples.
But was always focused on somehow getting that message to the West. So you can see that even in 1922, I think it was, that Prabhupada first met him.
And this is at a time where there's an entire narrative of, by the British, that India is this backward country and we can help them get civilized, underappreciating.
Well, that would be a mild way to put it.
Did I say underappreciating? I meant
actively trying to destroy.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not under. Actively trying to.
So in any case, at that time, as a young man, he took that instruction as like his mission in life. And but it was many years later, in the 1960s, so 40-something years later, that he would actually travel to the West penniless as a sannyasi, as a renunciate, coming on, just begging, seeing how he could somehow get to America, even though he had no money, had no sponsors. And one woman who ran a steamship, cargo ship company, really advised him not to do it, but he kept begging her. He said, okay, you can go, on a month-long journey over the, from Calcutta around the southern tip of India, across the Adriatic Sea, across the Atlantic Ocean to New York City.
If anybody takes a boat to America, I think we should give them a special holiday just for that. I'm fascinated by anyone who will get on a boat and cross the ocean. Yeah. What to speak of get on that boat and then get off that boat and then move to an entirely new country like New York City, where I don't think Prabhupada ever saw snow, right?
He hadn't, no. And everyone was warning him, don't go, from all different angles.
There's no food there for you to eat.
Yeah, so many things. And, as that boat that he boarded in Calcutta, it stopped off somewhere in South India, like Kanyakumari or something, where he picked up a couple crates of his Srimad Bhagavatams that he had printed, right? That for the previous years, building up 5 years before that or something, he was just like living in Vrindavana, meditating on the mercy of Sri Chaitanya and his great disciples, the 6 Goswamis, praying for their blessings, preparing himself to go to the West, even though he didn't know how he was going to get there. Having those books printed, he got on that boat, he picked them up in South India, then he had 2 heart attacks crossing the ocean.
It's one thing to do adventures when you're like, okay, it's 19, I'm going to take a year off before college and travel around, hitchhike around Southeast Asia. It's another thing to do it when you're 70 and you don't have a credit card. Imagine traveling without a credit card.
And you're a person that's also never left your home country. This is, he lived in India his entire life. He had no idea what the Western world was like.
He
had no idea what New York City was going to be like. And he just went, with faith that in the order of his guru came the empowerment to carry it out.
Oh, I want to read that poem by Prabhupada. The
Okay.
puppet poem.
So,
I can find the puppet poem.
but
Is that okay?
yeah, go ahead. But meanwhile, I just want to stress that just to put into context what we're doing here on Wisdom of the Sages was he wanted to bring the message of the Bhagavatam to the West. Now, where does that begin? It begins in the Bhagavatam itself, thousands of years ago. Now, this is the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we read some from this the other day, that the sages are gathered in the forest. They know the age of Kali is coming, that darker age is coming. And part of what they say to him, I'm going to read from right now. This is text 21 to canto 1 of the Bhagavatam. The sages turn to Sutta Goswami and they say, knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place, Naimisharanya, to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead in this way perform sacrifice. We think we have met your goodness. I'm sorry, actually, I need to go back a bit. No, maybe this is, that's right. We think we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as the captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. Since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the dharmic principles have now gone for shelter. Okay, that was one of their important questions that they put to Sutta Goswami. Krishna's left. Where will people find Dharma now? And in the following chapter, this is part of the answer to that question. And this goes to some of the verses that we read, that we chant every morning. He says, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, and remember and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? O twice-born sages, this is Sutta speaking to the sages in Naimisharanya, by serving those devotees who are completely freed of all vice, great service is done. By such service, now this is important, one gains an affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva, for hearing the Bhagavatam. Then he says this, Sri Krishna, who is the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages. That means all you Zoomers and all you others out there who would like to listen every day.
It's working on them.
Right?
Right?
It cleanses the heart for material enjoyment, from the heart of those who have developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Then this verse that we chant every day, by regular attendance and classes on Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed in loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, sattva, and becomes completely happy. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the person whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced. This is what you read Bhagavatam for, right? To get this kind of yoga. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions, all one's bad karma, is terminated when one sees the self as master. Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of God, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self. So he describes you need to read Bhagavatam regularly, and that will take you through this entire yogic process. And then in the following chapter, chapter 3, he says, this Bhagavad Purana, this Srimad Bhagavatam, is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna for his own abode. accompanied by Dharma, knowledge, etc. Right? Krishna left with Dharma, knowledge, etc. But then it's here in the book. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So knowing this, Srila Prabhupada, and getting the order of his guru to spread this to the rest of the world, because it was in the age of Kali that the world is meant to get light from this particular conclusion of all of the yoga literature. Srila Prabhupada, as a 65-year-old man or so, now a sannyasi, a renunciate, he lived in a very simple conditions in Vrindavan, and he would be awake, at midnight and for hours just writing Bhagavatam, thinking of all of us, thinking that someday we would get together and do something like Wisdom of the Sages.
True.
Right? He was just sacrificing his life, living under very austere conditions, thinking about the benefit of the world.
This was retirement for a saintly person.
Yeah. So what we'll do now, and let me just read just a bit of some other things, that there was prophecy also that this would be brought to the Western world. And that's coming from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and in other Chaitanya Bhagavatam and other books about Sri Chaitanya, how Sri Chaitanya says this famous verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bharte Bhumite Haila Manusya Janma Yara, Janma Sartatakari Karapada Upakara, that one who has taken their birth as a human being, particularly those in the land of India, Bhartavarsha, should make his life successful by working for the benefit of other people. And that was always understood by taking the teachings of yoga, teaching the teachings of Bhakti-yogi, and spreading them to the entire world. So therefore, there's another famous verse from Chaitanya Bhagavatam, another biography of Sri Chaitanya, where he says, Prativiti achi yata nagaradi grama, sarvatra prachara haibe moranama, that in every town and village, the chanting of my name will be heard. Right? And it's the Bhagavatam that from beginning to end, shows how the chanting of Krishna's names is the most effective and powerful process for countering the effects of Kali Yuga.
Shout out to all the yoga teachers out there who are doing their chanting in their yoga class. Appreciate you all fulfilling this prophecy here.
Fulfilling this prophecy. And so, although, many people in that lineage, in our lineage are thinking, okay, that's kind of like an exaggeration, every town and village.
Yeah, he probably means like every place in India.
Yeah, that must be right. But Srila Prabhupada, on the order of his guru, said, no, it's actually meant to go to the whole world. So as a 70-year-old man, he takes off on a boat for a month-long trip, has 2 heart attacks, just carrying his Bhagavatams. He's got 2 crates. That's all he's got, right? But he's like, somehow I've got to change the world,
He's on a mission from God.
Yeah, and what he accomplishes in those last 12 years in his life is just mind-boggling, and how it continues to spread since he's passed away in 1977 is just
okay. Special K. Here's the poem Prabhupada writes on the
this
boat.
Is okay. So this is after a month-long difficult journey over the oceans, having 2 heart attacks. He arrives in America, and sitting in the dock, he writes this poem.
Check this out. This is this is after 2 heart attacks. Who's thinking after a heart attack, I'm going to write a beautiful poem? But this is what he does. This is in Boston Harbor, September 18th, 1965. A year before I was born, just before I was born. My dear Lord Krishna, I'm not going to read the Bengali. I'm just going to read the English, if that's okay. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? It's not like there's any romance like, all right, when I'm 70, I'm going to retire to America, go to the Hard Rock Cafe, check out how beautiful, go to Sedona. Prabhupada's not going to Sedona. He's like, his idea is like, I'm not going to be enchanted by America, which is a lot of people do. I want to get on Route 66. He's going here and he's seeing that this place is in tamas and rajas, and therefore they must be in pain. It doesn't matter how glossy everything is. Like, people can dress really nice, but if they're in Rajas and Tamas, they're in pain. It should just be understood. He fully just understood that there was no romance in this trip. He writes next in the third one. Most of the population here, just what I said, most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to even understand this. It's interesting, like the drug addict is thinking, this is great, these drugs are so good. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of bhakti? I am simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. By the way, I'm reading this, but it's actually in very beautiful Bengali poetry. All living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. The words of the Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then they will be able to understand your message. This is what you're doing right now. Isn't that cool? This is exactly what you're doing. Everybody here on Zoom. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, or the super soul in everyone's
It's a verse that I just read.
Oh, should I read it? This is 111, right?
No.
No, I'm sorry.
1-17, I think.
Yeah. These are these great verses. Should I skip it because you just read it?
No, read it.
Okay. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regular attendance in the classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's mode and passion and ignorance, such as lust and desire and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and becomes completely happy. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with bhakti to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruit of actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. I guess you can't hear that enough, Kaustubha.
Those are exact verses I read. I had no intention.
You read. Yeah. You and Prabhupada think alike. That's a good sign.
Connected today by his mercy.
But it's also, it's also, the cool thing is, and we can take this as a lesson too, because sometimes people seem like, well, they seem to be having fun and they're not practicing bhakti yoga. Like whenever I see a person who's just sort of like indulging in material life, you got to go right to the science of it. If there is people indulgence in rajas and tamas, you should understand they're in pain. It's that simple. It's simple math. Do the simple math. Rajas and tamas cause misery and pain, and don't let it fool you. The photographs, Instagram, here's my post, here's a picture of my feet on the beach getting drunk. Don't believe the feet in the photos on the beach, okay? Don't believe the feet. That's my new hashtag.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about with the feet?
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. My feet picture. He will become, all right, so Prabhupada continues, he will become liberated from the influence. Don't believe the feet! Don't believe the feet! Make a song about that.
That's like, I don't know if that one's going to work.
Okay, he will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. how will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. This is just teaching us about what Bhakti Yoga is, right? If you want me to do it, I'll do it. If I fail, that's okay. And if I'm successful, that's okay. Whatever you like.
That's up to you. It's up to me to try.
Yeah. Only by your mercy, O spiritual master of the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their heart, they will certainly feel engladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. O Lord, this is the famous, most beautiful one. O Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance, make me dance, O Lord. Make me dance as you like. How beautiful is that?
I mean, that's,
How beautiful is that?
that's a person that, he took this huge risk. He had already suffered so much just trying to come here, but he was undaunted, and he writes that prayer, in Bengali poetry. It's a song, actually, with this faith that Bhagavatam is what people need. I'm here to try to share it. If you want to make my words understandable for them, please do. And, sometimes we read Prabhupada's comments in the language. He was a person from another culture, in another world, in another time, and sometimes like the language, it sounds like, it's like, one must surrender the will and, it's just like, you wouldn't say it that way to like, but he also was just like, just try to understand the message. Just try to understand the message behind it. And so that's, that's what we do just by reading his purports every day. Now, why don't you read, Raghu, for us that
there's one last line of this.
Oh, okay.
If I may. But I also, that analogy that Prabhupada uses as a puppet is so beautiful. Only because the puppet is just hanging.
Yeah.
And he's dancing according to the will of the puppeteer. This is my puppet imitation I'm doing, if you can see this live. The puppet has it's ridiculous for the puppet to get proud. It's showing that in Bhakti Yoga, we understand that we are fully surrendered, and therefore the puppeteer controls us. It's not dependent on our great charm, our great insight, our great knowledge, our great wisdom. He's setting the mood for how we should think as people performing bhakti. That it's not you. You got to get rid of the ego and let the ultimate puppeteer take control of you. It's quite poetic, and it's quite an incredible way to. It's retraining us how to think. That's what's going on. It's retraining us how to think as devotees. I have no devotion. This is his final statement. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhakti-vedanta. So he was given this name Bhakti-vedanta in his retirement.
Which literally means, devotion and knowledge in a sense. So
Bhakti,
he was saying, he's saying, I'm not really living up to my name when he said, I have no devotion, I have no knowledge.
Yeah, Bhakti-vedanta. And now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport or the real meaning of Bhakti-vedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami. On board of the Jaladuta Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, 18th of December, 1965. That was so beautiful.
Very nice.
It's great.
Well,
Prabhupada Appreciation Morning. This is so good, Kaustubha.
Well, now let's do this. Why don't you read? This is a fascinating short story, from a man who saw Prabhupada as he was about to leave to go on that journey.
This is such a good story.
Okay, you're going to read that? This is from that book, Our Srila Prabhupada, A Friend to All.
This is Advaita Acharya's house one, right?
Yeah.
All right, check this out. In 1980, the head priest from Advaita Acharya's house in Shantipur in West Bengal came to ISKCON.
Without going to a whole thing about who Advaita Acharya is, it's a holy place in West Bengal, which is connected to Sri Chaitanya, who was spreading bhakti, whose mission was to spread bhakti around the whole world.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Prabhupada's disciples have a very big temple there right now. It's sort of like the
Not at Advaita Acharya's house, but
no, yeah, in Mayapur.
Yeah.
And some of you guys have been there with me and Kaustubha. Very big temple. And so one of these small temples that's been there for many years, the priest who's been there for a very long time, he's about to tell this story. He said, just recently, an amazing realization occurred to me, this is the priest, that I wanted to share it with the devotees, people practicing bhakti everywhere. I've been the pujari and the sevite, that means the priest and the caretaker, at the house of Advaita Acharya for many years. I was also there in the 1940s and the 50s, and at that time, I noticed that one married gentleman, a Bengali devotee, used to come to the temple quite regularly. He was dressed in a white khadi dhoti. Khadi means it's very inexpensive, but hand woven, hand loomed. That's what it was. Dhoti and kurta. So it's very simple, but
common.
What did you say?
Very common Bengali way to dress.
Yeah, but yes. And he always came alone. He would sit in the back of the temple without speaking and would chant the holy name, the Harinam, on his malas, very quietly and very deeply. And I noticed that he came on weekends, usually once every month or two, in a regular way. After chanting there for many hours, he would always thank me when he left. His presence was profound, and I became attracted to him. Since his devotion was very solitary, I never spoke to him to disturb him. Sometimes I happened to notice that while he was chanting, his eyes would be full of tears and his voice would be choked up. Then, for a very long time, he did not come. However, I distinctly recall that in August of 1965, I saw a saffron cloth renunciate. So here he was in these white dhotis and coming on weekends, and now all of a sudden he hasn't seen him, and now this person wearing these robes of a sadhu came. And he sat for a long time chanting Hare Krishna. I could see his beads moving and his eyes closed in concentrated devotion. He was weeping unabashedly, even more than he used to while he took the holy name. Finally, as evening came, he paid dandavat. He bowed down for a long time. So he bowed down like a stick, basically. Dandavat means like a stick, like dandasana. When he arose, he came to me and thanked me for my seva. I asked him, "Who are you? I remember you from a long time ago." He replied, "My name is Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. I am an unworthy disciple of His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, my divine master. I have been coming here for such a long time because my Gurudev has given me an impossible mission. His desire was for me to go across the ocean to the Western countries and spread the sublime teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are countless souls there who have never heard of Sri Radha and Krishna, and so they are suffering greatly. I have not known how this mission of I have not known how this mission of His will be successful. So I have been coming here to this special house of Advaita Acharya, where he, Advaita, and Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would gather to plan Sankirtan. Sankirtan means you're coming together for Kirtan, and a movement of Kirtan. So he's saying hundreds of years ago, Chaitanya himself would come here at Advaita Acharya's house and plan of how to give this sacred mantras away to others. So he would come here and pray to get their special, imbibe their special mood. It was here that they launched the inundation of love of God. Isn't that a cool way to put it? They launched the inundation of love of God that swept through India and continues to this day. Thus, I've been praying very earnestly here that they will all give me their mercy, and somehow They will empower me and guide me. I want to satisfy my Gurudev's desire, but I am unqualified to do this. Again, setting the proper mood, right?
Yep.
Like the mood in America is like, I got this. I think I got this. We got this. His mood isn't, I got this. I'm completely unqualified. I don't have much knowledge, but if they want, I will do this for them, and I will try my best. As he was speaking to me, I saw tears falling down his own cheeks. Then he continued, tomorrow I am leaving for Calcutta to go on a ship across the ocean to America. I do not know what will befall me there, but I am praying most earnestly here for help. Then he very humbly asked me for my blessings. Then he very humbly asked me for my blessings, and I was indeed moved by this Vaishnava's sincerity and determination as I watched him depart upon his journey. It was a few years later that I began noticing for the first time white Vaishnavas coming to Advaita Bhavan. That's where he was. They were all wearing dhotis and saris and chanting on tulsi beads. I never spoke to any of them, but then I noticed them. They gave me this Back to Godhead magazine from America. And as I looked at the photographs, suddenly I recognized a painting of the founder Acharya, or the creator of this institution, who brought this Krishna consciousness or bhakti to the West. It was a picture of my friend Bhaktivedanta Swami, who had come and prayed here so many times. Then I realized that he was actually accomplished the impossible mission of his Gurudev. And I saw that it was indeed he, starting alone and without pretense, who had accomplished this glorious miracle against all odds. As soon as I saw this, I came here to this temple in Mayapur to tell you this information. I know that he has gone from this world now. He's left his body. But I thought perhaps you might want to know this story about your and my beloved Srila Prabhupada.
Amazing, huh?
What a story, huh?
Just to see that he was there, knowing I'm going without any money. I'm getting on a boat for a long journey. All I got is a couple boxes of Bhagavatams. I don't know anybody over there. He lands, he was living on the Bowery in New York City. He was just, taking so much risk. But he just had this faith that let me just try to satisfy the desire of my guru. We don't have a lot of time left.
That was
but
great.
But let me just read something from some of the sweetest stories in this book are spoken by the people that lived in Vrindavan with him, like the Brijbasi neighbors, the residents of Vrindavan who lived around him and saw him when he was writing the Bhagavatam in the early 60s. And there's so much nice stuff, but we can come back to this on another day. But I wanted to read one. Let's see if I can find it. There's one that was written by a man who was, or spoken by someone who, I think his father was like the Dudwala. Yeah, here it is.
Udwala.
He was just like the person that sells the milk,
Garam Dut.
His name is Shriman Krishnalal Sharma Pandit. And, he says here that is a Dudwala, a milkman living near the Radha Damodar temple. Okay. So in this book, you get big scholars and big religious figures, and then you get like, this person was just a Brijbasi milkman. My father used to give milk to Srila Prabhupada when he lived at the Radha Damodar temple in the early 1960s. So the Radha Damodar temple is a very important Krishna temple in Vrindavan, but it's a very simple place, particularly back then. But it's where the samadhis, or you could say like the tombs of all these great saints in the tradition are established. And so especially Srila Prabhupada wanted to go there to write Bhagavatam. And he said Srila Prabhupada would come daily by our shop with his tiffin cup, and my father would give him cow's milk for his offering as madhukari. It means like every day the sadhus go around and beg, and you give him a little something. Sometimes, if my father noticed that Prabhupada had not come for several days to collect milk, he would send me there to deliver it. Srila Prabhupada was very affectionate to us, and we had love and appreciation for him. So he was just a little boy at the time. I saw Prabhupada now and then, only to take milk to him. In those days, there was a way to cross through the Radha Damodar courtyard, but now that has been closed off. When I would bring him the milk in the tiffin from my father, I would ask Prabhupada if he had anything to eat, but Prabhupada would only want milk. I saw that in his room there was only perhaps a little fruit or dry flour, nothing else. He was too busy in his Hari Bhajan to eat, in his spiritual practices. Prabhupada never used to talk very much. He was always studying his books. It seemed to me that he stayed in his room and did not talk to people except in the evenings out on his veranda. He would close his doors and do his bhajan in his room, do his chanting, his meditation. We also heard from the neighbors that he was chanting very much and always studying and writing manuscripts. I remember, so this was him preparing to come to the West, doing very deep meditation and writing the Bhagavatam that we read every day. I remember that his room at that time was very old and in disrepair. The bricks, these are just two tiny little rooms that he's living in there. One's like a kitchen and one was just like a little room that he stayed in. There was no stone floor, only dirt. Even there were some weeds in the floor. The land all around Radha Damodar Mandir was like a jungle then. It was not built up with so many rooms and paths as it is today. One time, when I came to deliver milk, I arrived at his doorway and he stood there with the container. And I stood there with the container. But he was chanting Harinam very deeply and didn't hear me. So he walks in as a little boy to bring him some milk. Prabhupada's there in deep meditation, doesn't even realize that he's standing there. So I was waiting there for some time because I did not want to interrupt his devotion. It's such a culture, right? You're muted, I think, brother.
Sorry, muted.
I kept peeking inside his door, which was partially opened, and I noticed there were many tears in his eyes and on his face. I kept waiting there, but still he didn't look up to see me for a long time. As I watched, I noticed that on the dirt floor, there were some bugs. Then I saw a scorpion crawling on the ground.
Jeez.
It was coming close to the feet of Srila Prabhupada, but he didn't notice. I watched it come closer and closer. I made little noises to catch his attention, but he was still chanting, not aware of outside things. Finally, after I had anxiously waited for what seemed like quite some time, I called out to him, "Oh, Prabhu, there's a scorpion near you." He slowly opened his eyes, which were wet with tears. He looked at me. His glance was so deep with feeling and mercy. He just looked at me and then looked down at the scorpion. I asked him if I could sweep it away from the room. In a gentle, grave voice, he answered, "No, no. Please do not worry about it. Don't disturb. He is also a devotee." But we talk theoretically here about seeing God in the heart of every living being, and here was a person that he was chanting these names, but it wasn't just mechanical for him. He was actually in a very deep state of love of God and of compassion, and he's crying these tears. He has no fear of the scorpion. He just sees it.
And let's make it clear, like, if that was me and that was my room, I'd be like, "Who's running this place? There's a scorpion in my room. Can someone get a broom here? There's a scorpion in my room."
So then he says, after some years, I saw him again when he came back to Vrindavan. I was walking in Vrindavan on the Vrindavan Prikrama near Keshi Ghat. This is on the banks of the Yamuna River there. And I saw a few white devotees surrounding a sannyasi. Like many of the local people, I was very curious and came nearby to look. Amazingly, I saw it was my old friend, Srila Swami Maharaj. Then Prabhupada looked over and saw me. He called out to me and he motioned for me to come nearby. I ran to his feet and touched them in the dust. Prabhupada then embraced me with love. Rubbing my head, he said to his students, "Oh, this is my boy, my old friend. He brought me milk and helped me before when I had nothing." Then Prabhupada took off a necklace of some valuable stones that he had on his neck, broke it, and put some of the stones in my hand. We have kept that gift and made those stones into earrings that my wife wears every day. But that's just one story from a book that's just loaded with stories about what a special, kind, gentle, loving, deeply devoted, and extremely compassionate person this was. Just writing his books, writing the Bhagavatam that we read it every day, and then with great courage coming to the Western world to try to share it with people, and accomplishing amazing things that we'll hear about when we bring Shyam Sundar Prabhu on the show in a couple of weeks.
This was a great show. I really needed this today. It's helped my appreciation. It's going to help my whole day. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for everybody. I have so much appreciation and accountability for the Zoomers here. I have appreciation for the others, but I'm just going to give appreciation for the Zoomers here because they make sure I wake up early. We need accountability in our lives. Spiritual accountability means living a life without regrets. So thank you very much. Appreciate everybody. Everybody joined Zoom late that I didn't say good morning to. That's one of our things here. We say good morning to everybody. Especially, who's this guy? Who's this guy right here? Nitai Lieberman. Yep, he's waving already. I don't know how old you are, Nitai, but you can write it.
Oh, I love that guy.
Ian and Joshua and Gopal Nandini and Isabel and everybody who recognized I was doing a Public Enemy thing when I said don't believe the feet. Rachel and Jeff, Tom York, Kevin.
Sega's Naked Viking today.
Naked Viking. They're the Naked Viking boys. Hope I see people Saturday. Thanks for all the others out there who are watching. If you want to join us here on Zoom Live, you can. All you got to do is email Mara. wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Don't forget, this is a... What do you call it again? A community-supported podcast.
All right.
If you like what we're doing, you can join us on patreon.com and support it. And we've created a secret vault of treasures. Live yoga classes, practically speaking, every day. 12-step recovery, Bhakti influence recovery group that we're going to try to get 7 days a week. We're working on that. And
I spoke to Raghunath Swami about that yesterday. He's very excited about that.
He's excited. Nancy Rothman, Jiva, get on it 7 days a week. This is your mission. This is your retirement mission. Spread Bhakti recovery 7 days a week.
What's happening on Patreon today?
Mara?
Kristen Shea is teaching a gentle yoga at 6:30 a.m. and Kumi G is teaching tonight at 6 p.m.
Ooh, so we had 2 classes today. Kristen Shea, very awesome. That's very soon. And Kumi, everybody loves Kumi's classes too. She's from California, so she misses the morning show, but her and all her people, they have a great studio in LA. They all tune in. Please, if you're an other out there and you want to just check in with so we know you're alive and share whatever you like. Tell us where you're coming from. Right, yeah. Look.
I'm just also there's a recovery meeting at 1 p.m. today for Patreon members.
This is happening. They're fulfilling the desire of the masters. It's you can write Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. We are ranking, my friend, Mr. Kaustubha. We are ranking in Apple Podcasts again.
Yeah, number 2 in Hinduism.
That's pretty good. So it helps if you write a review on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't done it, do it. Give us a 5-star review. And it helps our word get out. And, we're part of this whole thing. Everybody here is part of these predictions of spreading spiritual mantras all over the world. And you can feel like a wave of, what do they call it? Spiritual inundation. It's happening, and we're part of it. And all you have to do is desire it. That's the amazing thing. If you desire it, you're in.
Look at little 8-year-old Nitai Lieberman. He's getting into it.
I know, this guy's a special kid. Jai Ram.